Thank you everybody for joining us. This will be our last workshop series for the school year. So we want to thank you guys all for joining us over these past 6 months for this whole workshop series of healthy habits, healthy families. And for today's theme, it's healthy body, healthy mind. So we wanted to do a mental health focus to celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month, which is this month. Okay, so next slide. Yeah, and for the presenters, it'll be myself from the Health Education Council, and it'll be also Sonia Fernandez Arana from Dairy Council of California, along with Sal, who will be doing our food demo, who's also from the Health Education Council. And we also have 2 guest speakers today who will be leading our mental health session. The next slide. So again, welcome everyone. And if you guys could all, and you could put in the chat which school your child or children attend, just so we can have some information, where you guys are, what schools you guys are coming from. And again, thank you guys for joining us. So next slide. Yeah. So I want to let our mental health therapists introduce themselves. It will be Kathleen McCarty and Tanya Salazar.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen McCarthy, and I'm one of the mental health therapists for Twin Rivers. We are stationed in the special ed department. Welcome and thank you for being here.
And I'm Tanya Salazar. I'm one of the mental health therapists, and to give you a sense of what we do, we work with kids in from kindergarten through 12th grade, all through Twin Rivers. So. And we've been at a lot of campuses, so hopefully one of these days we will run into many of you in person. So we just wanted to start out with even though our focus today is for this piece of the presentation, we just wanted to remind everybody that mental health is integrally connected with all other aspects of health. So physical health, how well our body's working, our emotional health, so our ability to regulate our feelings, all of those things interact with each other. And our mental health is dependent upon these other pieces. And when we aren't feeling, very motivated, a lot of times it's harder to keep up the other two. So when we have them all working at the same time, then we have a much better overall health in all 3 areas. We can go to the next slide. Oh, and if you'd like to look at, we did include, and I'm sure this will be going out to you in the PowerPoint, there's links to different online resources, and that particular slide was from Pear Deck, and they have a whole, guidelines for parents with their kids and teachers with students on how to create a self-care recipe. So you can actually, it's interactive and you can use it online if you'd like to do that with your kids. It's kind of fun. Next slide. So we're going to start with the restorative power of sleep. So really sleep is where it all begins. This is one of the most important pieces for all of us. And we have to sort of model that, all these pieces of self-care as parents. Well, we need to take care of ourselves because parenting is an incredibly demanding, hard job. So our self-care is super important. And one of the things that impacts that, as you all know, when you are tired, we're not at our best. We're more irritable, we're more reactive, we're not as alert, and we forget things, which makes the whole day more frustrating. So, and one of the little things I just want to share with you before we go into some of the sleep hygiene habits is that they've done studies now on mice, and they're thinking that these are studies that are also applicable to people, but that the brain actually takes a bath every night. That we have like garbage that collects in between our brain cells during the day. It's just fluid buildup and different things that, you know, throughout the day we're eating and we're producing waste. And a lot of that ends up in our brain. And when we sleep, there's a substance, and it's called the glymphatic system. There's a substance that basically washes all of that trash out of our brain. And that substance, one of the substances that is washed out is something that has been linked to Alzheimer's disease. So brain health is super important for not just right now in the moment, but for our lifetime health. And then these are tips for how to get quality sleep. So we're talking about not just an 8-hour night, but that those 8 hours actually have deep sleep and REM sleep involved. And those are the different stages of sleep. So, and deep sleep is important because it's where the pituitary gland releases important hormones, including human growth hormone, which is really important for kids. And it helps generate cells in the body. We also, deep sleep is important for memory, short-term and long-term, and overall learning. So these are some tips to help get good sleep and feel rested and alert the next day. So being consistent, going to bed at the same time every night, and getting up at the same time each morning, including on the weekends, which I know is very, very difficult, but it's just one of those tips that sleep experts recommend because it's a lot harder to get back on track on Monday or Sunday night if you've kind of stayed up late and gotten up late over the weekend. Also, making sure your bedroom is quiet, dark, relaxing, at a comfortable temperature, meaning not too hot. So it's okay to be a little on the cool side. It's much easier to sleep if your room is cool than if it's too warm. Also, this is really hard for all of us now because we're all addicted to our phones, but removing electronic devices, no TV, computers, or phones at bedtime. And part of the reason is that the blue light that's emitted from those devices actually interferes with melatonin production, which is that hormone that helps us fall asleep. So we have a much harder time falling asleep and staying asleep if we have devices on, partly because we're more focused on the devices and partly because of that blue light. Getting exercise during the day helps us fall asleep at night. And then they really recommend not eating a couple hours before bedtime, avoiding large meals and then going to sleep. And definitely avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed. Obviously caffeine can keep you awake, but alcohol actually also interferes with deep sleep. And even though it might help you fall asleep initially, the quality of sleep is impacted. And then building in a bedtime routine. So anything that you do every night at the same time, it kind of trains your brain to be looking for those cues. And we are creatures of habit. So when we have a few episodes of the same experience, it helps us to self-regulate. So you can use soft music. Some people like to read or meditate or pray before bed. If you have there's something I've been using, which is a meditation app, has either I can pick a meditation or I can pick some soft music. And every time I turn that on, it automatically turns off by itself after about 15 minutes. And I've been able to sleep so much better just because I've got my brain in that routine. And this is a video that you'll have access to. We don't have time to watch it today, but this is a video from a sleep expert from UC Berkeley that talks about why all of those different tips are important. So if you'd like to watch that later, you're welcome to. Next slide. And then this is just about physical activity. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a gym membership or you have to, set aside an hour and a half every day to do a major workout. These are just easy things you can fit into your day with your kids. And it's super important that they see you exercising or they may not want to exercise and then they're going to have a hard time sleeping. So if you can find any home workout you can find on YouTube, and there's just literally zillions of these. You can do anything from aerobics to like a really soothing yoga activity. There's one of my favorites and Kathleen's favorites is Zumba. Then another thing you can do with the family are family bike rides. And just make sure that everybody is safe, wearing their helmets, and you're in a safe area. But that can be a really fun way to get some exercise and get out in the sun and get some vitamin D, which is so important. If you have pets, particularly dogs, they really thrive and they will sleep better if they've had exercise. So out walking the dog is a great way for the whole family to get exercise. They recommend cleaning with pizzazz, and that just means like basically throwing a cleaning party. So you put on some good music. You might even, if you have a big family, break up into teams, and one team tackle the bathrooms, another team tackle the kitchen, another team tackle the living room, and then throw yourself some sort of reward when you're all done. Double duty playground means that the parents and the kids are playing on the playground, not just the kids. It's easy for us to sit there on a bench and watch the kids play, but if we get up and play tag with them, then we're getting some cardiovascular exercise as well. Plus the kids think it's pretty funny when they're running and we can't catch up with them. And then one of the things that we used to do at my house when my kids were little, and still do sometimes, is just crank up the music and dance like crazy around the living room, and we look goofy, and that's okay. It's just so much fun, and something especially to do on a rainy day, or like in the summer if you've got AC and you don't want to go outside. It's something that you can do indoors that's safe. And then this is an article that we wanted to include for you that has to do with the association between fitness and mental health. Next slide. And then finally, on my part, just wanted to talk about how reaching out to your community is such a important piece of mental health when we feel isolated. Especially, since the pandemic started, so many of us have been indoors and staying away from other folks. And granted, that is really important for our, it was important in the beginning when we didn't know what was going on and we didn't know how it was transmitted. But now that we know, the safety protocols, stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask, wash your hands, carry hand sanitizer, you can do a lot more things outdoors or within your community that are safe. But start at home, start with family dinners. I know it's easy when we all get busy, especially when there's teenagers, to not do a family dinner. But even if you just plan it for a few nights a week, and then make sure that nobody's on their phones during dinner. We're talking with each other. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What was the best thing in your day? What were the high and what was the low? You can share funniest moments or give out compliments to each other. Another one is, building community within your family, doing family game nights, and trying to keep it away from video games and more on, board games, card games, something that stimulates your brain and is something that the whole family can enjoy together, no matter what their skill set is or how old they are. Making sure that the whole family works together as a team to do chores, because if we don't teach our kids that we are a team as a family and we all need to contribute for chores, they're not going to be as resilient when they go out to try to be on their own. It's going to be a hardship for them to learn, oh my gosh, I have all this stuff to do. And they might even see it as punishment or something. If it can be a fun thing, and then the whole family gets a reward when all the chores are finished, say on Saturday, that can be a great way to build teamwork and community within your family. And then again, with the bedtime rituals, that's just a nice time when you can check in with each other. I still tuck my teenage boys in. I know that might sound silly, but it's just this saying goodnight at the end of the day and I love yous, and making sure that there's that connection. I feel like is so important, because one day they're going to leave me, and I won't have I want to cherish those little moments with them. And then branching out for community connections. So building community within just like on your block, on your section of the street. Having just bring your own beverage and your own snacks, sit around, or play dates with friends in the neighborhood, which I know for me has always been really helpful, just because I need that connection with other parents, so that I know I'm not in this by myself. I'm not isolated. I have other folks who understand what I'm going through. And then the friend connection, both parents and the kids, is really important. And then using your local outdoor resources. This summer, the parks are back open, community pools. They have said that because chlorine is, it kills germs. It's naturally a disinfectant, that pools are one of the safer places you can go if you're going to be around other folks. Neighborhood cleanup projects, anything where you're giving back to your own community to beautify it and make it more enjoyable to live in, is not only benefits you, because there's brain science that shows that when you do something good for someone else or for your community, you actually get a benefit, an emotional and psychological benefit. And you're going to benefit from the outcome if the street is all cleaned up, and the kids will feel like they're contributing. And then, just offering help. There's still a lot of homebound folks who can't go to the grocery store. Maybe they're elderly or disabled and they can't get out to do their yard work, and being able to help out with those things is super important to teach our kids. And it actually shows that it improves happiness levels and physical health. And there's an article on that that we included in the PowerPoint if you'd like to read that later. All right, we're going to pass it over to Kathleen.
I'm going to briefly talk about how to prepare to returning to school in the fall. And I think we need to spend some time talking about self-care, because we can't give of ourselves if we don't take care of ourselves first. And that is such an important thing to model and to teach our littles, is that self-care, like coping skills that we teach them at school, emotional regulation, it all comes back to self-care. And the more we model this as adults, the more it just becomes habitual to them. And so one way to do that is just having a visual like what's on the screen and checking in with yourself. How are you doing physically or emotionally? What stress level are you at? Are you needing alone time to recharge? That's a good practice not only to get into with yourself, but also with your kids. And we all know that, that saying that if you get up on the wrong side of the bed, and that kind of guides the rest of your day. Well, this is a good thing to check in with your kids and try to turn it around with some coping skills so that they start the day off on a good foot. I put 2 links in the PowerPoint. There's a self-care toolkit, and then there's a great website, the Stress Teens, but it also has resources for younger kids, educators, and parents as well. So there's lots of good resources for self-care there. Okay, next slide. And so to go along with that, dealing with stress, one of the first things to do is to identify what you're feeling. And so there's so many different feeling face posters. I like this one just to check in with how you're feeling. For older kids, you want to build their emotional vocabulary. For younger kids, it's easier for them to see visuals. And then after they have identified how they're feeling, then you can start teaching, modeling, and practicing different coping skills to manage anxiety or to manage anger or frustration, or even just being too silly. And so introducing maybe one skill a week and practicing that. And then as you incorporate different skills, having them choose to which ones really work. These are great life skills to start working with children as early as in kindergarten. And then I put at the bottom some different free apps that you can go to that have different strategies of dealing with anxiety or stress. Headspace, Smiling Mind, Insight Timer, Cosmic Kids, and Calm. Those are a few of the ones that are really popular, and they're free of charge. Okay, next slide. The other thing to take in mind over the summer is how important routines are. Many children handle change if it's expected. And a regular routine gives your child a sense of security. It helps him or her develop self-discipline and control. And it provides a learning opportunity for your child to remain comfortable and in control of their day. Rapid changes to a child's routine or a lack of a routine can trigger anxiety and stress, which will result in behavioral difficulties, especially when heading back to school in the fall. And for these reasons, establishing and sticking to a summer routine is important. So at the bottom of the page, there's a link to how to establish summer routines. And then it has a lot of different activity lists of what you can do to keep your kids active over the summer, and not just having them doing screen time all day. But as far as a routine is keeping their bedtime routine, keeping their mealtime routine, so that their sleep rhythms don't get off when it's time to go back to school. Some of the other important things about routines is that it creates structure to your day to help you follow through and carry out your daily chores and tasks. And knowing what to expect, as I stated earlier, can reduce stress and help children feel safe, develop life skills, and build healthy habits. It also will help with the transition back to school. And that the summer reading log, that is another link that will take you to reading logs, these graphic organizers that kids can, at various different developmental levels, for kids to keep track of their reading. So they should continue to be reading 20 minutes a day. Okay, next is family meetings. So family meetings, um, you know, this is a whole topic in itself, but regular family meetings can promote positive family connection because it provides a safe time and place for making decisions collaboratively, celebrating good things happening in the family. It's a time to create family rules together because kids are most likely to follow them if they are establishing them or helping to create them. You can distribute your chores fairly that way. You can settle conflicts. It's also a good time to get out your calendar and keep track of upcoming events. And on the left-hand side is just an example of a family meeting agenda, whereas low-level conflicts that don't need immediate attention can go on the agenda to be discussed at the family meeting. And the family meeting will start with appreciation. So going around and telling each other what you appreciate about each other. And then going over the written agenda and coming up with solutions as a family. It's not a time to focus on the problems. And then ending with a family activity. And family meetings really help kids develop and self-responsibility. It gives them a voice and a choice. It strengthens family communication, And it helps to celebrate each member as well as problem solve individual and family issues while helping them feel a sense of belonging and importance. So this kind of thing that you hold throughout the year, but by doing it throughout the summer, there's so many less opportunities for lessons and growth in social skills and communication and problem solving that will keep them primed and ready for when we go back to school. Okay.
We just wanted to share with you a couple of resources for community events and community summer camps and other programs for kids. They have it divided up by individual region in Sacramento, and there's a bunch of different topics. If you click on the link we included in the PowerPoint, Sacramento for Kids, I'll just show you really quick. Oh, well, no, I can't click on it, can I? If we want to, and during the Q&A, we can click on it and you can see what that has to offer. And then as well, our district, the mental health and wellness webpage has links to social emotional supports and mental health resources in the area if you need that during the summer. Are we saving our Q&A for the end of the hour, folks?
I think we can take it now. If we have some questions or Heriberto, I don't know, I haven't quite monitored, I wasn't monitoring the chat, I'm sorry. Are there questions?
So at this point, we haven't received any questions. We've been asking our families to send questions they have via the chat. If there's questions that we have or we want to ask for our Kathleen and Tanya, we could ask that you could try unmute yourself and then ask your question that way. And then we'll be, if it's in Spanish, we could also, in this case, I could interpret the question as well. Kathleen and Tanya, here's a question that was asked. How do we build our confidence for our children? I feel like not being around peers and kids their age has hurt their confidence levels.
Do you want to take this, Kathleen, or do you want me to? I see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Oh,
There you go.
So my short answer is yes, we are seeing that school-wide. So over the summer, provide opportunities to get them connected with others. And a good place is to get connected at home and then extend that out to their friends, whether that be virtually or in person. You can go to the park. But to get them ready for in-person learning, you really want to try to get them reconnected. And whether it's that they find out who their teacher is and maybe have a short Zoom visit with that new teacher. But also the benefit of what has come out of digital learning is that we have so many more ways to connect. And so if they connect to their school friends throughout the summer and make a Zoom date, play date together, but if they have social anxiety and they just don't have the skills, then the best place to start with that is in the home where you're practicing and modeling and role playing. And a lot of the coping skills, we provided the links, but also we'll be going more in depth into specific mental health disorders next week for our next presentation. And that will provide more of an in-depth view with resources of how to deal specifically with those feelings of anxiety when it is time to go back to school. Anything else, Tanya?
Oh, thank you. I think you more than covered it.
I don't see any other questions. that is a really good question to ask, how to build confidence levels of our students, especially as far as the socialization skills.
Mhm.
Um, I will give it a minute or two to see, well, maybe not 2 minutes, but we'll see if there's any more questions in the chat or if people want to unmute themselves.
And I would
Um,
recommend that if you can get your kids involved in any activities over the summer, even if it's just a regular play date with a group of trusted friends who you know are being safe and who they normally would have contact with. And then like we showed you the programs that are offered through Twin Rivers and also through Parks and Rec and some of the other places around Sacramento. There are quite a few that offer scholarships or offer low cost activities for the kids. So anything that they can do where they're able to socialize safely is going to be really important to help them kind of acclimate back into a social situation at school.
and I do want to share just it, we will share a document that has a PDF of all the summer camp, summer activities that we have scheduled in the county. I would send that as an email and as an attachment. Before we proceed on to the next section of the presentation, I do want to share the fact that I dropped extensions of people who you could contact regarding summer school and what does that look like. There's two people there that speak Spanish and somebody else. So if you have any questions, I just want to make sure that I have answered your questions regarding summer school. Those are the people that you could contact regarding that information. And so I think at this point, I see there are no more questions being asked. So I would say probably we'll obviously as questions come up and maybe towards the end, if there are other additional questions, you could ask them as well.
Yes, thank you, Tanya and Kathleen, for your wonderful presentation. I hope families will, tune into the upcoming kind of mental health workshop that's planned. A great opportunity for them to, come prepared to ask questions, something that they may not have thought. But please be encouraged, anyone, to kind of chat in your questions along the way, and Kathleen and Tanya will be able to hang out with us for a little bit, and they'll be able to answer additional questions at the end of the session. So don't feel like you missed your opportunity. So as kind of, Kathleen kind of mentioned a little bit about, self-care, and mealtime is just, a routine. And we know this really helps to shape that regular routine and that structure, right? You wake up, you have breakfast, you go to school, you learn, there's recess, snack break, you learn some more, etc. And the list goes on. And when summer comes along the way, you may feel that structure isn't quite consistent and really strong. So it's something to kind of keep in mind that, it can definitely present very stressful moments, not just for yourself as a parent, but for the kids as well. And, Kathleen definitely touched a little bit about, having that daily normal rhythm helps to diffuse stress, but also, depression in kids. And that lack of that routine, it has a mental, emotional, and physical, effect. And some kids are a little bit more susceptible to the weight gain during the summer, as well as adults. Certainly, COVID has kind of shaped our eating habits and kind of transitioned those a little bit, simply because either the way we react to stress, some may eat a little bit more, or just the continual grazing and not having a really structured mealtime routine. And along with that, those effects, it's all related again towards that routine, and that less structured environment just makes kind of the snacking a little bit more present, and kids, can certainly become less sedentary. And we want them to really keep that, that active lifestyle during the summertime. As Tanya said, we definitely don't want them on the screen. I feel like everyone is just zoomed out. We're really tired of seeing, being on the computer, on our Chromebooks, or, laptops, whatever it may be. We're just, exhausted, and we need a little break from that. So it's nice if we can take the opportunity to go outside and get some fresh air and do some movement. And nutrition and eating, it's really a big part of self-care. You know, those structured meal times, we want to keep those consistent the best we possibly can. So when there's that lack of structured time, but also no plan for what you're going to offer, you know, for those meals, this causes chaos, not only for yourself as a parent, but for the kids as well. And, you know, those, you know, food sort of routines are essential to raise a really healthy eater. And those meal intervals throughout the day really help kids kind of not only hone in on their appetite regulation skills, but it's really something critical that they need, right? It helps them maintain their health, but also maintain their weight as they go through the different sort of life stages. So, you know, kind of you're probably thinking, okay, well, what can I do? You know, so we know that schedule, it's so important because you got to get those, you know, their nutritional needs and be able to kind of tune in to kind of, right, those hunger cues and get more of a better regular sort of appetite in a sense. So it's not just about, you know, kind of the meal plan and the routine. It's not just about the healthy foods on the table, but the timing and the schedule, all that really is your ally. It's your friend. It's kind of combining those two. You need to keep that routine, but also have a good, strong meal planner in place. That's what's really going to make a big difference and ensure that kids are getting the variety of foods that they need, which in turn is going to give them really the nutrients that they need throughout the day. So, you know, food schedules help them to kind of, right, recognize and maintain those kind of, you know, appetite and those kind of reduce the, what we call kind of a head hunger. And head hunger, some of us may have experienced it ourselves, is when, let's say you think you're hungry, and that could be simply because someone else around you is eating. So that triggers your desire to eat. Or if you have access to maybe a food that you typically wouldn't normally have at home, all of a sudden knowing that it's there, that is causing that head hunger, that kind of spikes your appetite. I know I've definitely seen that in myself with certain foods that I bring home or my husband may bring home. So I kind of have to keep that in mind. So there is a distinction between like the physical hunger and like the head hunger, which is more of the psychological aspect of it. So the timing of meals and snacks, we know those are definitely going to change as kids grow. Their tummies get, you know, bigger along as they start to grow, their tummies get bigger. They can eat a little bit more food. And naturally that will kind of extend the time frame of when kids really need to eat. So it's something to kind of keep in mind as you kind of go into the summer and certainly as your, you know, as your child starts to grow. So what are some tips and things to consider to keep that routine consistent? So for now, definitely take note of, you know, their meal schedule. You know, I mean, when do they eat breakfast? When do they normally have? Do your kids have like a midday or mid-afternoon snack? The second thing, determine if you can keep that, you know, kind of that schedule as consistent as possible to kind of what, you know, what they have during that school year. It's, you know, it's hard, especially when you have multiple kids of different ages, maybe their schedules are a little bit different, but it's okay if your routines, and I think Kathleen touched on this, to allow some, a little bit of a flexibility, and it's okay to kind of adjust it as necessary as needed. So creating a slight little shift in, you know, the times of when you feed kids, it's okay if you're off by like 30 minutes, but just kind of keep in mind that for some kids, that simple little change may be drastic for them, and for others, it's not. So it's just about, you know, having a good sense of, you know, how are your kids reacting to that new routine that you might be imposing on them. And typically kids need about, as we know, 3 meals and maybe, you know, 2 snacks, 1 or 2 snacks. So typically the younger the child is, the more snacking you may have noticed, especially if you have, you know, multiple kids of different ages. As they start to grow older, they may not need 2 snacks in the day. We certainly want them eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but maybe they benefit just from having 1 snack. And teens, they're kind of like adults. They really don't need to eat as often as frequent. They can definitely hold out a little bit longer in between their meals. But we know, you know, kids, regardless of their age, if they're involved in a lot of physical activity, maybe the activity level is really high, maybe they're training athletically, or they're part of kind of just a sports team where they really are doing a lot of, you know, conditioning and training, we know that their needs are definitely going to grow. They're going to need a lot more food, a lot more fuel. And the same thing, if the kids are going through a growth spurt, we know that, you know, that's going to mean they're going to be really hungry, right? And so the main point is to be responsive and to be flexible, you know, to the needs of your kids. And the last thing, keep in mind, you know, your kind of summer plans and activities, anything that may take you away from the house. So, you know, I definitely encourage packing a go-to snack, or even if it's like simple as like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or just a cold sandwich in the car on the go, just to keep that consistent meal time is key. So the main point is kind of consistency. That's what really matters, and that's what's going to build that routine. And as Kathleen said, it becomes habitual, right? And we also want to model that as well ourselves. We definitely don't want to have an erratic eating behavior where we're constantly grazing, because otherwise we're just basically demonstrating that behavior and, you know, letting kids know that it's okay to eat like that. So keep our mealtime consistent as well. So this is a little bit off track to kind of mealtime routines, but it goes along in the same vein of nutrition being self-care. What does this mean specifically? How do we tie this back to social emotional learning? So you may have heard a lot of, you know, conversation, maybe, you know, by your teacher, or excuse me, from your teacher or from the school district around, you know, what the school is doing around social emotional learning. Especially kind of with COVID, this really increased the efforts, everyone's efforts around this. So really the point of social emotional learning is to provide kind of really a safe foundation for kids to learn and have that positive experience. It enhances their ability to succeed, not only in school, but also as they become adults into the potential career and in life. So teachers have integrated, you know, social emotional learning into their curricula, kind of their practices, kind of what they've done. And it's not just the role of, you know, the school or the teachers that have the responsibility, it's parents as well that share that responsibility in supporting, you know, the social emotional development. And something as simple as talking about nutrition or having those positive nutrition, you know, experiences can really help foster that development. So, you know, over the summer, you want to reinforce good nutrition, those healthy eating habits, not just for our kids, but for ourselves, right? As parents, we want to model that behavior. So I'll kind of walk that through a little bit on the wheel, the sphere, what that means. How exactly does nutrition connect to developing, you know, and reinforcing these competencies? So self-awareness, it's kind of right as we kind of know, ability to understand one's emotion, right? Their thoughts and how that influences our behavior. So simple as trying new foods could create that opportunity to build that self-awareness. You know, have the kids really understand what do they like, what they don't like. Did they like this new food? And talking about those experiences really helps to foster that as well. The other thing is mindful eating. Teaching kids to practice to slow down when they eat and understand basically how they feel when they're eating. What are those emotions? How do they feel, you know, eating, and how do they feel after eating? Self-management, very similar in that same vein of recognizing emotions, but this is kind of just tied to sort of, you know, different situations. So kind of going back to that mindful eating, having kids, you know, teaching them to be attentive to their hunger cues and their satiety. This can really help them manage their kind of impulse control around food. Think about kind of a birthday party, right? Kids go to a party, they gorge, they see all the sweets, the treats, and the junk food, and they just go crazy and they start eating and eating and eating, and they don't really pay attention to what their body is telling them. Are they really hungry? How are they feeling after they're eating this food? Simply just because sometimes the food is there and we're around our friends, they just kind of lose sight of that. So that's just kind of an example of how something so simple has a pretty big effect on their body. So kind of having those opportunities to kind of, you know, reinforce that and have those discussions around food. Social awareness. You know, it's simply just understanding those perspectives. And one area is kind of just that we're going to focus on is kind of the systems and how that influences our behavior. And specifically things like gardening, growing your food, even cooking that food that you grow, and visiting farmers markets, getting a chance to interact with local farmers can help kids understand basically our food system, you know, and appreciate, you know, all the work that it goes behind growing food, and availability of it. So those simple kind of activities helps them to just better understand that what's happening, right? We know there's so many people that are involved in that food system and that process and that cycle. Relationship skills, I think Tanya brought this up, you know, having family dinners, that's exactly what we want. Turning off your phone, basically asking each other questions, interacting. So along with the vein of family dinners, inviting your kids to be part of your meal planning process. Go grocery shopping with them. You know, invite them to help you grocery shop, but also cook as well. All that is going to help them build those positive relationships, those social connections to the family members, but it also going to have them understand that essential life skill. What does it mean to be healthy? And being healthy all means planning healthy meals and cooking them and preparing that. So they really have a good understanding of that essential life skill. And responsible decision making, we know, as we said, you know, it's essential. It's part of self-care, but nutrition empowers kids to make healthy choices. It enables them to be, you know, active and, you know, have a role in shaping their health. Because you're not always with them. As we know, as they grow, there are a lot more influences, not just their peers, but externally as well, marketing, and maybe they do have a little bit of pocket money and they're, you know, walking after school to your house and, you know, they stop at a convenience store or whatever. We want them to make good choices as they grow older. So all that in itself kind of comes back to sort of self-care and how you're still playing a key role in supporting their social emotional development. So I'm hoping that you were able to see that connection specifically and how you're continuing to reinforce that. And I believe Joanna is going to continue the conversation around gardening. So Joanna, thank you for taking it away.
Thank you, Sonia. So for today's lesson, like Sonia mentioned, it's going to be a garden focused lesson. And this lesson will focus on vegetable gardening and how to create your own garden, seasonal and edible classifications of vegetables, and the benefits of homegrown produce. And I mean, this activity really ties into, you know, the whole topic of mental health and social emotional learning. You know, it's a great activity that you can do at home with your kids as a family. And it's just another, you know, self-care activity as well. And it's just, you know, it really is like it helps, you know, with like self-care and mindfulness as well. And with nutrition as well, and that, you know, you're growing your own food in your backyard. And it's a really great activity for kids. And just a quick little fact for top three. So top three of the 10 of the most popular homegrown vegetables are tomatoes with an 85%. So that's a really popular vegetable that's, you know, homegrown. It's very easy. I remember I did it, and when I was in school, it was a really fun activity. You know, we had little pots, and we took home that plant, and over the summer, you know, we watched it grow. You know, we were in charge of watering it and putting it in the sun. So it's a really fun an easy vegetable to grow at home, as well as peppers and then onions and cucumbers. Next slide. And vegetables, like I mentioned, they can be grown in, you know, different kinds of containers, and in your home yards, your backyard. So you don't have to have a huge, you know, yard or huge area to grow your own garden. It could be, you could start small and then from there, you know, expand. So there are some 12, you know, basic rules for gardening, for this great activity to do with your family. So the first, you know, you want to plan your garden before you begin, and plant only as large a garden as you can manage. So like I said, you know, you want to start small, you know, see, you know, how much time you can manage and how you like the activity. Um, and then from there you can grow, you know, a bigger garden. And for number two, quality over quantity. So it is better to have a small productive garden, than a huge neglected one. So, whatever, how much you can handle, make sure you start small. And then garden care, you want to remember that besides harvesting, delicious vegetables, you will have to, weed out, um, the different weeds, and then water it, as well as control the pests. So there's a lot of aspects that come into gardening. So you want to remember that garden care. And the next one is to make the most of your space. So you want to grow crops that produce the most food in the space available. So you want to be mindful of that, and you also want to know your seasons, and plant vegetables. Um, Oh, plant nutrient-rich veggies. So you want to plant vegetables are also rich in nutrients. So a lot of people do plant flowers, but they're so easy to grow. But vegetables are also a really great option. And they are make sure you're choosing rich vegetables. And you also want to know your seasons and plant during the correct season for the vegetables that you want to grow. And we'll go over the different crops that grow according to season. And then you also want to remember, don't limit your garden to just summer vegetables. There are a lot of cool weather vegetables, so you don't um, only grow in the summer. You could grow, vegetables all year round. And you want to remember sunlight. Sunlight is very important, and most vegetables require 8 hours of full sun each day. But the leafy vegetables, they can be grown in partial shade, and those are the ones that grow more in the cool weather. So like the winter weather. You also want to remember to prepare the soil properly, by raking the soil clean and leveling it out. So it's not just about, finding some dirt, making a hole, and then putting in the seeds. You want to prepare the soil properly so that your garden can flourish and grow. And you also want to water and fertilize it as needed. So, remember to water every day, and not just having soil, you also need to have of fertilizers so that the vegetables can grow and have a lot of nutrients as well. And you want to harvest your vegetables when they're ripe. So knowing when exactly to harvest them is also important. And also storing your vegetables when they're ready to be harvested. You want to store them promptly and properly. Um, and you can also, freeze them, or there's different various ways that you can eat them. Um, but if they're not going to be eaten immediately. The next slide. Okay, so there's a lot of edible plants of a part of a plant parts of a plant. It's not just the part that we all know. There's certain vegetables that you can actually eat, the entire vegetable. Um, and they're divided into major groups with edible underground and edible above ground parts. And so we'll go over some of the examples of those vegetables that fall under those categories. So in that image, you can see that it's in different sections for roots, seeds, flowers, leaves, and stems, as well as the fruit. And so for the roots, the edible parts of the plants, so beets, you can eat the roots. So beets are the root of the vegetable, as well as
Clavel es el
carrots.
raíz de la planta, también la zanahoria, lo que uno come es el
Okay, I muted him, no worries. Um, So yeah, so the roots, we can have beets and carrots, as well as jicama, which I know is very popular, in the Latin culture, as well as sweet potatoes and then yams and other kinds of potatoes. There are also the seeds, um, like the corns are considered the seeds, as well as peas, because those are grown in the pods, so those are seeds, as well as beans. And then for flowers, that would be considered the broccoli. It does look like a flower, as well as cauliflower. And then for the leaves, lettuce, Brussels sprouts, and spinach. And another part that's also edible, for the beets, you can eat the root, which is actual beet, and then you can also eat the leaves on top. And that goes for a lot of those root vegetables, like Swiss chard. The carrots, you can also eat the top. So yeah, so that's another example where you can eat the entire vegetable. As well as for stems, it would be, you know, asparagus and celery, nopales for the Latin culture, and then, you know, bok choy. And bok choy is a really good kind of like a lettuce type Asian vegetable. And they have baby bok choy, and then they have the bigger one. So, you know, you can eat the entire thing, which is the stem along with the leaves. And then we have the last one, which is a fruit, which would be the avocado or the tomatoes that are considered fruits, as well as squash and bell peppers. Okay, and so for the different vegetable classifications, so there is cool weather and warm weather, and they're well, it's depending on, you know, the weather. And many gardeners, they only grow summer crops. Those are the most well known, but there's about 3 to 4 different growing seasons. So you can, you know, have your garden flourishing all year round. So you can plant a summer crop, a spring, a summer, and then a fall crop, so you can, you know, get the most out of your gardening space. And the idea involves planting your favorite, you know, cool weather vegetables, and then you follow it with the warm weather vegetables, and then you finish with another planting of your cool weather vegetables. And the cool weather vegetables, they grow best and produce the best quality crops when the temperature is like, you know, cooler, like around 55 to 75 degrees. These actually have the most, these vegetables have the most nutritional value. And that's because, you know, like I mentioned, you can eat the entire part of the vegetable. You could eat the root, the stem, and the leaves, and even some of the flower parts. And those are considered fruits. Um, and then for the warm weather vegetables, you know, those are grown during the long hot days. And those grow during the temperature of like 65 to 95 degrees. So it's a really great activity, especially right now we're going into summer, to start that garden. Um, and those are not as, they don't have as much nutrition just because you can't eat the entire part of it. So it would be like the tomatoes and the squashes. So those are actually considered the fruits, or like the flowers, so you can't eat that part. You can't eat the entire part. So you want to remember to plant enough of each vegetable to meet your family's needs for fresh and preserved supplies. And when choosing what to plant, you want to consider these factors like disease resistance, when it comes to pests, and the maturity date, you know, how long it takes for them to grow, the compactness of the plant, so the size, you know, some of the more cool weather vegetables, or the leafy greens, those will take up a lot more room than, you know, like a smaller plant like tomatoes. And the size, the shape, and the color of the vegetable that you want. So you just want to keep all of those things in mind. And then some cool weather vegetables are, like I mentioned, asparagus or broccoli, and a lot of the leafy greens, as well as the root vegetables. And the warm weather ones are, you know, corn, cucumbers, peppers, squash, and tomatoes. Okay, and I don't know if we will have time for a food demo. I don't think we will, but here's a really good recipe for you to try at home. You know, and it's really simple. It incorporates the leafy greens and strawberries. So you're getting your cool weather vegetables, the summer ones with strawberries. You're also adding almonds in there, and for this recipe, it actually has you're making your own dressing. And you actually make it in a jar at home. So it's, you know, everything is homemade if you're able to grow most of these items. It's a really good recipe for you to try at home. And it's super simple to make. And it has only like 7 ingredients. And, you know, the dressing, you can make it at home yourself with the kids. So it's a really good um, and fun activity for the kids to do at home. And I think we linked the recipe in the chat. If not, I'll be sharing it with you guys. The next slide. So, and then for now, we'll be talking a little bit about, you know, some mental health resources that are available for you. So we have the CalHOPE Connect. It's a confidential peer support, like a chat line. And we have the web page back there that we can show you, and we'll actually be going through this more in depth at next week's Mental Health Matters parent workshop. So we'll be doing that workshop next week on May 25th. We'll have 2 sessions, from an English session from 3 to 4 on the 25th, and then on the 26th we'll have a Spanish session from 3 to 4. And we'll be providing the registration link for you guys to join us. And so we'll be talking more about, mental health and some other resources that you guys can access. And we'll be talking more about this specific resource. And this resource it's really great. It offers crisis counseling and more information for people that are having difficulty right now, especially through COVID. And there's a really good a text line, and then there's also a chat line where you could chat with different crisis counselors regarding, any concerns that you have, and they can share resources with you so that you can get some help. Okay, and now we have some poll questions, and I think we'll be launching the poll shortly. So these are just some, final questions regarding, the overall workshop series that we've been doing with you guys. So number 1 is, to what extent were you satisfied overall with the entire workshop series? And this is really great feedback for us to take and to work on the next workshop series that we'll be doing, and we'll hopefully have you guys join as well. And then if this workshop series has helped you to make positive and healthier changes at home. So we hope that by you joining this workshop series, it has really helped you and your family, learn tips and different activities regarding nutrition and any other information that we've shared with you. So thank you all so much for, joining us and for participating and engaging. And I think.
Yeah, Joanna, it looks like we didn't, I'm going to try to relaunch the poll again. We didn't, yeah, there were very few responses. It could have been a glitch on my end that I might have accidentally closed the poll. But if parents are having difficulty responding, you can just type in your response.
Mhm.
So as Joanna said, this was really going to help kind of steer the direction in which we sort of approach this series next year. And I know Ms. Vorse would be really, really appreciative of the feedback that we can get from you guys. So we have about 38% that have voted. So I'll give it just a couple of more seconds for you to cast your votes. And even if you're new to the workshop, you're welcome to still provide us your feedback for today. And this is kind of just very similar to what we have, the format in which we've approached the previous sort of workshops within the series.
And while we are waiting, I'll give you all an update on what's going to be happening with summer meals when summer school comes. So we all know that school gets out June 4th, and school meals will be available on campus or through your regular curbside. And starting June 7th, you'll be able to go to your school site between the hours of 11 to 11:45 to pick up a 3-day meal kit. So you'll go every Monday throughout summer school starting June 7th. And then you'll also be able to go on Thursdays to select campuses, and all of that will be listed online or on our Facebook. And we'll also be sending home flyers home. So be looking for information. Starting June 10th, you'll also be able to go. So you'll be able to pick up meals on June 7th and June 10th. And then every Monday and Thursday after that, through July 22nd. So we will be continuing to serve curbside meals, and that will be available not just to your enrolled students at Twin Rivers, but also to all children from basically the day before their 19th birthday, so 18 years all the way to birth. And we encourage you to make sure that your neighbors know this and other family members, that they can even bring their toddlers and get meals for them as well. So Nutrition Services is really excited that we're able to feed the children and continue to feed the community with these meals. And then if your child is enrolled in summer school, and I know that you've got all the links, and I encourage you to go ahead and contact the district ASAP because I know that they're registering for that. I believe it's starting on the 14th, and at many sites for the elementary, there will be in person. And we will be feeding the children on the campus starting for the summer school. So the kids will be able to eat right there. So they will have something to eat because I know right now they're not eating on campus, but starting for summer school, they'll be able to.
Okay. Lisa,
And I,
oh, sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Sonia.
Question
Yes.
regarding weekend meals. Is that something that a service that families will that will continue, that families will continue to have access? Do you know about regarding that change, if there's going to be a change in the
Yes. So we will still continue to provide weekend meals. So you'll be, if you come on Mondays and Thursdays to pick up your meals, you'll be getting a meal kit for 3 or 4 days. So that includes weekend meals. So there'll be a breakfast and a lunch that's available for Saturday and Sunday in your Thursday kit. The only thing that's going to change is at the end of the school year, we do not have funding to continue with the supper program. So it's just going to be your breakfast and your lunch for that, but it'll be for all 7 days. So just by putting that on your calendar, I know that we talked about sticking to a routine, but try to make your Mondays and Thursdays between 11 and 11:45 part of your routine to pop into one of the schools and pick up your meal kits. And make sure that you double check because not all school sites for the summer feeding program will be open. So make sure that you double check on our social on Nutrition Services Facebook site or get into the website as well, and you'll be able to find out what schools. Or feel free to contact us. And I want to say once again, thank you so much to Sonia from the Dairy Council, and thank you for Health Education Council and Joanna for really going over and above, and Sal too, for going over and above and being this awesome team that has brought us these amazing nutrition, live sessions that we've all gotten to join together to learn and grow together. And I know I've been so blessed to have this time with all of you and a lot of regular parents that have logged in. And it's been so fun to see kids that pop in here and there too. So thank you again from the bottom of all of our hearts. We appreciate all you've done for Twin Rivers. And thank you, Heriberto, as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, it's been a fun journey, and it's great. We've definitely got a chance to, like you said, learn and grow together, and really build that positive relationship with the families of Twin Rivers. But we do have one more thing, and Joanna is going to kind of briefly touch on that. So thank you so much, Lisa, for giving us just a summer meals update. For those that may not have seen, Heriberto dropped kind of the district nutrition services website. So that's definitely something you want to kind of flag and bookmark and go back and check out. Lisa will probably, I'm not sure if you shared exactly when the summer meal information is going to be posted on the website, but definitely reference that. Yes.
Yes, so for this slide, so Soil-Borne Farms, they actually were able to donate some seed packets to us, and they're actually going to be sent home with you guys in your tote bags. So, you guys can start your own garden with your kids over the summer. So we want to thank them, for donating all of these seed packets, and it's a variety of them. So I think it includes tomatoes, carrots, melons, radishes, zucchini, and herbs. So fruits and vegetables, and herbs. So you guys can plant them and grow them with your family over the summer. And we just wanted to mention, well, like I mentioned earlier, you don't need a big garden, and you can make them in small containers. And a good container to use would be like your old milk cartons. And it's a really good small little container, especially for the kids, and for them to have their own little plant. And if you don't have room for a big garden, that could be their own little pot, and have it by the windowsill to get some sun. So it's a really good little activity for the kids. So I want to thank them for donating those seed packets for you guys to enjoy. And here's some additional tools and resources. So, just our websites, Dairy Council, Health Education Council, and Twin Rivers, as well as the CalHOPE Connect crisis line for you guys to check out. And like I mentioned, we'll be going more in depth on CalHOPE next week at our 2 mental health English and Spanish workshops. So, if you guys want to learn more information about mental health, resources, that the school has for you guys, as well as community resources and other activities. Please join us next week.
Just wanted to ask quickly, Johanna, are the parents going to be getting the copy of the PowerPoint by email? Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yes, sorry. They'll be getting it.
So at this time, I know Heriberto is assisting with translating, so he's unable to kind of moderate the Q&A session at the moment. He is kind of definitely taking on that additional role. He switched his hat really quick to translator. So thank you, Heriberto, for your support. But yes, we can open up the floor. I can quickly look at the chat. I'm not sure if I saw a question. I did see a lot of great comments regarding kind of just gardening, what you guys are doing at home, or your experience around that. But I'm not sure if I saw a question, but we have Kathleen and Tanya still here with us, so parents are welcome to chat in a question, unmute themselves, so we can give the group a minute or two to see if questions come in.
Noté que Ruth tiene pregunta. Ruth, do you have a question? ¿Tienes alguna pregunta?
It might have been just the hand, possibly accidentally raised. I did see that earlier in the presentation, but I think we're okay. I'm not seeing any questions, but do you guys have a date for the mental health workshop that you guys are doing next? Is there a date and a time that maybe Tanya or Kathleen or Joanna that you guys can share with the group?
Next Tuesday and Wednesday, correct? Tuesday is the English and Wednesday is in Espanol. Both days are at 3 o'clock. And we did have a question from Alejandra, wondering if we were offering tutoring this summer. And the only thing I know of is that we are offering summer school, and there's a choice between online and in person. And I believe the link to that is in the beginning of the chat, but perhaps Heriberto can put it back in there because I don't have it handy. There are summer programs to support academics during the months that we are off through Twin Rivers. There it is. Thank you, Heriberto. So Alejandra, if you can look in the chat, ahí está el link de internet de la escuela del verano.
Okay, I appreciate everyone for sticking around 20 minutes over the time. I know we really enjoy the opportunities to connect with you guys, and appreciate everyone's time, your continued support in this workshop. And yes, there are thank you, Heriberto, for dropping in contacts in here as well. Heriberto will share out the recording and the PowerPoint slide as well, and any additional sort of resources that we could provide. So hopefully we can try to condense those into a sheet for everyone with links. But I think that would conclude our session for today. So thank you, everyone.